All right, we're going to move into information and general services. Resolution approving the grant award agreements for last mile broadband grant program in the final round. And I know there were some late changes to this item. So Craig and Elise, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, Chair Hall, members of the board. Craig Griesbach, Interim Director of the Information and General Services Agency, and I'll provide an overview of some of those amended recommendations here initially with our presentation. So your board continues leaning hard into supporting and advocating for enhanced broadband access across our entire community. One of the many ways that you have done this is through awarding several rounds of last mile broadband grants. The item that you have before you today is a review and recommendation of the final round of funding for the last mile broadband grant program. I'm joined this morning by Elise Strickler, who is our Chief Fiscal Administrative Officer in Information and General Services, and Carrie Sinoff with the Sierra Business Council is available online as well. Elise will be providing you an overview of the proposed projects, and Carrie will be available for any questions your board may have following our brief verbal presentation. So over the last month, we've received community feedback on these proposals, and our team has continued to review these projects to ensure that we're getting the most value for our community. As we have listened and acted on the community feedback, our team is recommending a revised proposal today to approve 3 of the 4 projects. We would like to work further with AT&T on the Alta Sierra proposal specifically to ensure we are striking a balance between reduced cost per connection and reassessing the highest priority areas within Alta Sierra. We have engaged in multiple discussions with AT&T regarding the proposed project boundaries, and both parties agree that we need some further adjustments to the project footprint to necessarily prioritize unserved fiber to home connections. So if your board approves the 3 recommended projects that Elise is going to highlight shortly, we'll return to the board at a future meeting to review the 4th project. And now I'd like to hand it off to Elise to give you a kind of overview of those 3 projects. Elise.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Hall, members of the board. The item before you today proposes 3 awards for this final round of the county's last mile broadband grant program. The total allocation for these 3 projects is $778.46, which represents, when added to the internet service provider's investment, $1,714,801. So it doubles our investment in the community.
Speak a little bit more directly in the microphone, please, Elise.
Thank you. The total build out will be for adding 781 connections with the contract spanning 36 months. Before you are the 3 projects that were selected from the qualified list approved by your board in January of 2024. A solicitation for bids was sent to the providers on the qualified list, and we received 6 projects from 4 providers. The evaluation criteria included the number of connections, the cost per connection, project readiness, community support and engagement, economic development and community impact, access to affordable connectivity service offerings, local match request, and points for the project being in an area considered difficult or expensive to deploy broadband infrastructure. I'm going to highlight the 3 individual projects. Xwire Inc., doing business as Oasis Broadband. The first project is in the Harmony Ridge Blue Tent area in Nevada City. The funding application is for a $221,989 grant or subsidy, which is 50% match. The total connections build out is 403 with a total cost per connection of $550.84. The second Xwire Inc. DBA as Oasis Broadband project that we are recommending for funding is in the Donner Summit area. The project application funding request is $156,437, which again is a 50% match. The total build out will be an increase of 130 connections with a cost per connection of $1,203.36. The AT&T project that we are recommending for approval today is the Wolf Higgins Corner. The funding application request is $400,000, which is a 58.2 match. The total connections are 248 with a cost per connection of $1,612.90. So each of these awards will offer high-speed internet services in previously underserved areas. By providing this subsidy to the internet service providers, we are bridging the gap and bringing them to these communities. Our recommendation today is to approve the 2 Oasis broadband projects and the AT&T Wolf Higgins Corner project for a total grant award of $778,426, accumulating in an increased capacity served of 781 total connections to the community. Thank you for your commitment and supporting enhanced connectivity in our community, and we are open for any questions.
Thank you, Craig and Elise. It has been a long time to get here. It's nice to see these 3 come forward, and I look forward to figuring out what is really going to happen with the 4th. So thank you for bringing these forward, and apologize to the public for delaying it from the last meeting. To turn it over to my colleagues on the board, would like to start. Lisa?
I don't have any comments or questions.
No questions? Rob, any comments or questions?
No, thanks for that information, and I'll look forward to the 4th one as we proceed with that, and knowing that this is a good start, and there's so many other areas of the county that are in need of this, but it's nice to see some progress. Thanks.
Hardy?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it came forward, and we'll look forward to the next project. One of the questions, and I think I know the answer, but just maybe to inform some of us in the process, the connection cost is a difference in the way that the service delivery, right? So whether it would be, could you just describe a little bit about that? Because the connection cost is wildly different between some of the projects.
So the connection cost is one of the evaluation methods that we used, where we took the grant request, so what they were requesting, and as a total grant award, divided by the number of increased connections.
Right, so is that because some are wired to an endpoint with harder to find connections or harder places to get to, and others are wireless?
Correct. The AT&T projects are fiber to the home, so that includes the undergrounding, and while both Oasis broadband projects are wireless.
Wireless, yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment.
There will
Yes.
always be a need for a shepherd to stand up against Goliath. Rob, if this is affecting your home, you should recuse yourself from the vote. This is the letter I received when AT&T said, yeah, our federally funded service isn't ever going to be available where you live in 2018, where they said, rest assured, AT&T is continually working on network upgrades in its operational regions. Well, this AT&T service is an area that is serviced by AT&T because it is, the reason for funding was based on AT&T DSL speed tests. So these are not necessarily new connections, they are just upgrades to existing connections in an area where AT&T has been losing customers to Starlink to such an extent that Starlink is at capacity. This funding will give AT&T Corporation an unfair business advantage against Starlink. This is all based on data that is over 4 years old. I do not know the exact footprint because none of this information is available on the website. The only thing available on the website is a request for final submissions happening on March 1st, 2021. That was 4 years ago, and that was prior to Starlink's general availability in Nevada County. You are well aware of AT&T's history of failing to maintain their network, failing to upgrade their network, and failing to expand their network. And the reason AT&T does that is because they can maximize profit, and they know that eventually a government with no plan to actually bring broadband to the people will simply give AT&T a handout to hopefully do that sort of thing. In this document about what was supposed to be talked about here, there's the number $1,167,000. That's the amount of money the AT&T Corporation makes net every 1.5 hours. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A company that makes $33.5 million per day does not need a taxpayer-funded handout to upgrade their wireline DSL network to fiber. They can do it themselves. It is a business decision that AT&T needs to make if they want to remain competitive against Starlink. They don't need our money to do it. That company made $12.25 billion last year. Giving them the keys to control our broadband access means hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially getting siphoned from our community every month from now until forever. Don't let it happen.
Thank you, Jezra, for your comments. We'll wait till they're all done to respond to some of that.
Good morning, Chair Hall and members of the board. My name is Paul Jewell. I live at 15501 Fay Road, Grass Valley. I'm in Supervisor Tucker's district. Before I start, I just want to say I made a career out of speaking to public forums just like that. I've been to over 350 Board of Supervisor and City Council meetings throughout the Western U.S. in a 30-year career. You have my respect for serving on the board because it is a thankless task, so thank you for doing that. I'm speaking today about the proposal for AT&T's expansion of service in Alta Sierra, and I'm pleased that Craig has pulled that from the item and set it up for future discussion. We live on Fay Road in a section where 2 years ago, Race Fiber brought their service into the area, and they stop at my next door neighbor 100 yards away, and they will not extend up the street. Last year, coming down the street from the other direction, Optimum brought their high-speed service down, and they stop 1,000 feet away, 4 neighbors away, and they will not come down the street. Myself and 6 neighbors are caught in a no man's land on Fay Road where no one will extend the service to cover this 1,000-foot gap. Not 1,000 yards, 1,000 feet. And I can't see any reason why the services can't be extended by someone. I'm very pleased that the county is working with AT&T for a solution for more service in Alta Sierra. I looked at the area network map that AT&T was considering serving, and it's already served by Optimum high-speed service. So I'm scratching my head going, why are we giving a grant to AT&T to extend service in an area that already has an option for high-speed service? So I'm asking Craig and other members, when you take a look at this area, please consider closing the gaps first before we do an overlay of one high-speed service on top of another. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Madam Clerk, do you have any callers?
No callers, Chair.
Okay, any more public comment? Okay, I'll close public comment. I'm going to turn it over back to you in a moment, but I just want to acknowledge that we've had our difficulties with AT&T over the years, and I asked for extra scrutiny on these items to make sure that this was done right. We are also constrained by a couple of factors. Number one, we need to expand the service to more people. Number two, we put out a solicitation, and we have to look at what comes in and use cost as one of the key criteria in terms of what we're willing to fund. I'll also say that the Alta Sierra AT&T grant was the one that was pulled, and we're going to be doing our due diligence, and we may reach out to you, Paul, to get more information on that. So Craig and Elise, do you want to speak a little bit more about how these were selected or answer any of those questions?
Yeah, Chair Hall, this is a big reason why we have a competitive procurement process, because it works its way through the solicitation of applications, the submittal of projects, and we have experts review these projects to make sure we're getting the most value out of the money and resources that are available. So essentially that went through this process, and it's been a long road to get here, as your board mentioned. Essentially, we evaluate all that criteria before we even get this in front of you for consideration. But Elise, if you could comment a little bit about the association between incentivizing providers to provide this service, regardless if they provide services in those areas, like the intent of that. Could you speak to that real quick?
Of course. So The initial qualified list did contain 6 internet service providers, and that 6 people on the or individuals on the qualified list were sent the request for bid on this funding opportunity. There was a panel that evaluated the criteria that I mentioned above with identifying unserved areas, which has a 25 downstream, 3 upstream, as kind of a guiding criteria for increasing services in those areas specifically. When we initially did the qualified list, one of the areas that we ranked for this bid was giving additional points to those areas that were truly unserved. And so that was helping weight to get the incentivization and the subsidy into the unserved areas. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll also just note that, we're really love to see local providers come in, and we wish there were more out there who would come in. And unfortunately, they have to compete against the bigger providers in terms of the cost per connection. So, we just encourage local providers to come in and work with us and see what we can do to expand that network. There's a lot more work to be done on this issue. Any final comments or questions from the board?
Thank you for that. And I don't disagree with some of the public comment as far as the needs going forward, as well as some other aspects. I think for me, this is a choice between, like Supervisor Hall pointed out, we've got a list, the grant money that's going to be allocated. So if the local providers or others, alternatives, haven't applied for it, I don't think we throw out the other ones because of that, I guess, if that makes sense. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'm looking right here at an exact project map for this one in particular, the Higgins Corner. I think this is publicly available. So there is a map that shows the footprint. And on a side note, my home is not within the project. But I think anybody that wants to see the footprint, you can talk to me afterwards, and I will show you how I got there.
Thank you. Lisa, any final comments? No. Okay. And we closed public comment. Okay, so we're back to the board, and what we're going to do is we have a revised resolution that was handed out to us that simply removes the 4th grant, the AT&T and Alta Sierra potential grant that will receive more scrutiny and potentially come back to us at a later date. So I am going to ask for a motion and a second on the resolution as amended for this item.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, thanks.
District 5,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes,
and District 4 is absent.
thank you. So this has been adopted as amended. Thank you, Craig and Elise. Thank you for the public comments as well.